Good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to finish up my shark puppets, at least one of them. Over the past couple days, I showed you the basic puppet. I stitched on my rows and showed you how I make my three-dimensional teeth. We went over short rows to make the top fin, and then I just need a couple more fins for this one and I'll finish it up. I will, this is what the end product looks like. My husband's home today. It might be a little bit noisier than usual. That's the puppet I'm working on today. That's the puppet I'm working on today. Over the past couple days we did teeth. It's a basic puppet. A lot of my patterns are just basic. A lot of amigurumi is just basic. One basic piece, and then you make it pretty and you make it into what you want it to be. The art part of it is, thank you everybody for joining. The art part of it is the accessory pieces that you put on it. So, just to recap, in the past we were doing small amigurumi dolls. Thank you for the likes. And it's just a basic doll. And I took this basic doll, and out of that basic doll, my price tag, same doll, accessories to make a cow. And then I took the same doll, added different eyes. Accessories were really just the ears and the tail on that one. I do on my website, if you go to my website, I have this pattern for this basic doll listed on my pattern. Thank you for all the likes. I have the basic pattern listed on my website, and it's just the doll. It looks like a little gingerbread doll without all the pieces on it. Little gingerbread doll. So if you go to my link tree, you can find this basic doll puppet. And I'm currently in the process of putting, as I do them, patterns for the accessory pieces. So far I have the accessory pieces for the ears, horns, and nose on my website. There's a little blurb there that tells you if you want to make cow, click on cow, and it takes you to that page and gives you the accessories. My husband was home this morning, so I didn't get a chance to do any computer work this morning, so probably after I'm done with this live, maybe later on this evening, I will get the pattern for the ears on the bunny. And but today I think I'm going to finish up my sharks, and then tomorrow make some round nose puppets. The puppets are basically the same. It's just a basic puppet, and I have, eventually I'll get, probably not for another week or so, but eventually I'll get the pattern on my website for my basic puppet, which usually just comes down here. My basic puppet, I have two different versions, one with a pointy nose in case you want to make like a shark or a fox or things like that, and then I have a second version that has a rounder nose if you want to make like cows or unicorns or things like that. I'm going to try to get those on my website too. They're basic. Anybody who makes amigurumi or toys or animals, it's all pretty much just basic. I'm sure if you looked hard enough, you could find at least 2, 3, 4, 5 patterns that are exactly the same, and nobody copied each other. It's just that that's how it starts out. And this is the shape that I like because I like my little toes. So you can see a tire like this. I like my little toes that come out, and I like my little arms to be like little balls. And it's all about how you craft it. What type of yarn do I use? For this one, I just used basic worsted weight acrylic yarn. For these, I just used basic worsted weight acrylic yarn. And for the plushies, I use the Bernat blanket yarn. And like a 6, I don't know. It's a 6mm hook. And for the longest time, I was a Bates person. Does it fray? This stuff? No. None of it frays. It's all crocheted in. All the ends are crocheted in, so there's no pieces left to fray. And these have been in and out of my bin. The first one. This one? The blue one. Okay. No, it doesn't fray. It doesn't pill. To be honest, I like to make my puppets and my amigurumis out of, well, I like to make my puppets especially out of acrylic because once you wash them, they soften up, and you're going to make a puppet. It's not just going to sit there. It's going to, you're going to want it to be used. So I like to use the acrylic yarn, and I know, can you see the label? I don't know if it's the same, but like Red Heart Super Saver. This one I found at Walmart. I know it's backwards, but it's just, if you can, I'll hold it there slow so maybe you can see it. It's just 100% acrylic yarn. Yeah, this does not fray. The Red Heart doesn't fray. It's twisted nicely so you don't split the stitches either, and it's wash and dryable, so like, and it actually gets really soft when yeah, you can use that for grannies too. A lot of people don't like it because they say it's stiff, but it's only stiff when you work with it. Once you've actually like dunked it in water and washed it for the first time, it gets really soft. It really truly does. I have 5 kids, and a lot of what I do, I make sure that I can find it in my load of towels after they come out of the dryer and realize that, oh, I didn't mean to wash that, but look, it still looks good. So that's one of the reasons why I use what I use. I like my stuff to be functional. Now these, everybody tells me, this is the first time I've really used the blanket yarn, but everybody tells me that the blanket yarn also holds up very well in the washer and dryer. All my pieces are sewn and glued. My eyes are safety eyes, and since the holes are so big on this, I put a piece of like Pellon, a thicker piece of Pellon I cut out and I put behind the eye, so I push my eye through the crochet and through the Pellon and glue it. Thank you very much. But I've made a ton of blankets out of the acrylic or the Red Heart or the Mainstay or just your basic acrylic yarn. It doesn't pill. It doesn't. It comes out of the washer and dryer fantastic. Much softer. Used it for sweaters and garments as well for my, because I do like to knit sometimes, and same thing, you throw it in the washer and the dryer because it's acrylic and it's easy to wash. I do like to use some of the better yarns sometimes, but it depends on what I make. Like when I do craft shows, I will do sometimes I'll buy cotton. I like to use recycled silk. I'll use recycled silk. I like to use wool. So I'll do those things, and I'll typically knit things with those, but this is the shark so far, and I have one fin done that I tossed somewhere here. My space is all of this small to do my stuff in, so, well, I know my fin's here somewhere because I just showed it to you. Probably under my chair. Nope. Either that or I'm sitting on it. There it is. And my fin, I know, just like everybody else that does this, can never find a hook. Yesterday I couldn't find my hook. I walked around, my daughter finally came out and said, if you can't find it, I'll find it. I'm like, I just looked there. How did you find that? Whatever. So, to do the teeth is just like a basic running chain stitch. And I'll do a little bit of it to show you, and then I'm going to work on the next shark fin and try to at least get one shark put together today so you can see it finished and how I stitch everything together. But to do my three-dimensional shark teeth, so what I do first, it's my tail, so I'm going to leave my tail out of there. If you need to see it closer, let me know. I try my best to keep up with comments, but all I did to start this, no, it's not going to come out. All I did to start this was, here, I'll show you this way, was I took my end of my yarn and I pulled a loop through. I put my tail to the side, and then I started working with my regular yarn. So once you start working with your regular yarn, as you can see, it's held in there pretty good, even without being knotted yet, and I won't knot it till the end. But I take my working yarn and keep it towards the center portion of the mouth, because you're going to see if you crochet it like this from the top, it's not like embroidering a chain stitch where you don't see that bottom stitch. You're going to see that quote-unquote bottom stitch along the side. So if I keep this towards the center of my mouth, that running stitch, that little running stitch there, stays in towards the center of the mouth and you don't see it. And if you leave your running stitch a little bit looser, you can actually pick that running stitch up when you form the teeth from this whole chain. You can use it as part. But to do this part, I would just then take my hook into the same place that the yarn came out. I would go up one more row and I would just pull through and do a slip stitch. So I would then, again, where I have my yarn coming out, I'm going to insert my hook right in there. I'm going to go up to the next, through the next row. I'm going to grab my yarn and I'm going to pull it. I'll do a couple more and then you'll see how it looks. And keeping this yarn to this side of the stitch to the inside of the mouth, you won't see that running chain. So insert your hook where you put where your yarn's coming out, grab under the next row, grab your chain or grab your working yarn, and then you can see it starts to build a chain, and you can see if I turn it this way, you can see where the running stitches are. Now, like I said, if they're loose enough, when you work into this chain, you can pick up that stitch. When you work into this chain, you can pick up that stitch. Or you can just work into the chains, and it actually hides it pretty well. You don't even see them when they're done. They just kind of disappear and fall into the inside of the mouth. So that's how, again, into the same hole. And it gets to a point because it angles up, that you kind of want to like angle with the mouth. You want to decide if you want them like way out there or if you want them in a little bit. I kind of put them out there because I find that when I start to stitch around them again, the teeth kind of, whoops, See what I mean about the chain? If you hold your working yarn to the outside and you do your stitch, you see that running stitch on the outside, and that's what I don't want to see. So I'm going to take that stitch out, move my working stitch to the middle of the mouth, or my working yarn to the middle of the mouth, and then I'm going to pull my next stitch. So I'll do up to the top of this one, and then I'm going to pick up my yarn and do my fins. If anybody wasn't here yesterday and they want to see how I did the top fin is worked with short rows to make it curve like that, like a shark's fin on top curves. And when I'm going around I just kind of pull my yarn around the front, and like that makes a nice. Just show you for just the sake of it. So, and I do have pictures in my pattern. Eventually, I'll get the puppet patterns up there. Right now, I think they're on Ravelry, but to be honest with you, you could just DM me or go to my website, not my shop, but my actual website, find the contact page and send me a contact. It comes to my email, and I can actually upload the PDF and just send it to you. But I offer that for my live people. I appreciate you guys joining me. So when I make the teeth for my shark to make them three-dimensional, like these are actually three-dimensional, it is just simply, and I'm going to pull these stitches out. I'm just going to show you to show you, but I would do a single crochet and a single crochet, and you would actually be working this way because you're going to work around in a circle. But this is where I mean, if you wanted to pick up that running stitch, you could, I don't know if you can see there. See, I picked up the stitch, but the running stitch is behind it. You can actually go under that running stitch and pick that running stitch up as well and work through it all together as a single crochet. So to do my row of teeth, you can see they're starting to pop out. I would just do my round of single crochets, and every third single crochet I would do picot, however you want to call it. So, and then I would do my 3 more single crochets. And you can see how it now has a tooth that is three-dimensional. Again, to do the picots or the picots, some people pronounce them, you would just chain 3, and then when you look at your stitch here, try to get it angled right. When you look at your stitch here to finish it off, there is the front loop of the stitch, and then there is the bar of the stitch coming down that create a V. That's where you're going to go into to close off your picot. So you're going to actually take your hook down through the front loop and down through just that one bar. So down through the front loop, down through that one bar. So now you have your stitch on here, and you have the front loop and the bar, and you just pull it through together as a slip stitch. And that makes the picot. And depending on what kind of design you're doing, I mean, you could do the teeth with anything, and then you see that makes a row, starts making a row of three-dimensional teeth. So, but when you're doing your picots, it's really up to you. Sometimes it's how you want it to look. Sometimes I do 3. That's going to be because I did it backwards, but sometimes I do 3. Sometimes if I just want like a little bubble, I'll do 1, depending on what my pattern is and what I'm making for it. But I'm going to pull that row of teeth out because I have to finish going around with my stitches. So that's how you would do the teeth. And I can finish those off later. I have this one done. And you can see my basic puppet only comes down so far, but when I make the sharks, I add a tail. So you can see this one's done and has my teeth on it. And I know it looks funny. When I hold the puppet like this, it looks like it's not right. But it is right, because when you put your hand in it and you curve your hand down to use it like you would use a puppet, you can see that the jaw lines up the way it should. So when you're making the puppets, if you make any of my basic puppet patterns, you'll think that maybe you need to make the bottom a little bit longer, but you really don't, because when you curve your hand and you use it like a puppet, it all lines up. So I'll do another fin, another top fin like this, because this top fin uses the short rows, and I can show you how to use short rows. There are different techniques in amigurumi, and like I said, it all starts out with the basic one, just a basic pattern, and this is just single crochet. And I didn't even, you can yarn over, you can yarn under. It's really your preference. Yarn under makes your pattern a little bit tighter and smaller. Yarn over just makes it look like this. When I use the blanket yarn, I just yarn over because I don't need it any tighter than it is, because it's a little bit of a pain to work with to begin with. And I use a smaller hook. I use a 6mm hook instead of anything bigger with it. And I just try to crochet a little bit looser so it happens. But, okay, so this large back fin that makes it look like a shark fin. Let's see here. And my patterns again, when you start a pattern that says magic loop or magic ring, you don't necessarily have to use a magic loop or magic ring. You can use the chain 2 method. And the chain 2 method would just simply be tying your slip knot, chaining 2, and then for this one it says single crochet 4. So that I would then, in the second chain from the hook, single crochet my 4. You'll find that when you do the chain 2 method, you get a little bit of a hole there. If you don't want that hole there, leave a longer tail, and then you can just kind of weave back and forth and pull that hole shut so that you don't have to worry about the hole. I taught myself how to do the magic ring, because when I was trying to teach myself how to do the magic ring or magic loop, my daughter, who was less than 10 at the time, was crocheting with me. This is actually one of the things she did. My pin cushion here, it's a little turtle. She's 17 now. She says, "Oh, I like doing this. This is so easy." And I thought to myself, if she can do that, I can do that. So I sat there and worked on it, and I managed to do my magic ring, which is basically just, you're just picking your stitch up through a loop. And if you hold that stitch and chain, you've secured your stitches over the loop, and then you can pull it. I will add that if you are going to use a magic ring or a magic loop to start your projects, and you can use them for granny squares, you can use them for other motifs, you can use them for pretty much anything that starts in a circle. I do recommend, I know you'll see some people say if you wrap it around your finger twice and then you do it, it won't come apart. I can guarantee you that no matter how many times you wrap it around your finger, it's coming apart. You have to secure that knot, or that you have to secure that loop with some sort of knot in there, or if you throw it in the washer, it will come out. If you never plan on washing it, then maybe not, but I always secure it, and I'll show you how I secure it. So the shark fin starts out with a magic loop and 4 single crochets. Now, when you look at the 4 single crochets, you see 1, 2, 3, 4. You see here at the very end, was where you put the chain, where you made the chain 1. That's what I'm going to refer to right now. So you're going to pull your magic loop tight, and you're not going to pull it so tight that you pull that chain in. Hold on. I know it's finicky because, so there's my stitches, and there's the little loop from the chain that I chained initially around it. So when you pull your tail, you're going to pull it, but you don't want to pull it so tight that you get rid of that loop. And then I usually take a smaller hook so that I don't stretch that out, and I put it into that loop from that chain. This is why I use a smaller hook, because it'll be a little bit tight. So I put it in that loop from that chain. It's not in my first stitch. If you can see my stitches, it's not in my first stitch. It's in the loop from the chain. And then I pick up the tail that I've already tightened, and then I'm just going to chain 2, pull my end through, and then you can take that and you can, this is kind of hard to show you, slide that chain 2 down, and it forms a knot. And then you can either crochet over this tail at this point, or you can just leave it hanging there, whatever you want, and weave it in later, whatever you want to do. But that's how I secure my magic loops, and I always do it because they will always come apart once you wash them or through time and wear and tear. Okay, so back to the fin, and I'll put it here. I should find some way to pin it to myself, I think. So that's the shark fin that I'm working on right now. And it works with short rows to make it curve. So when you see these people to do all these crazy looking dinosaurs and dragons and things like that that have all these loopy, curly, even little horns, I have goat puppets that have little horns that curve, things like that. Anything that's you're gonna work in the round that you want to curve, you can work with short rows, and that short row will put a curve in it. So you could actually make a snake like that, and it would hold that shape because you added the short rows to it to make it that shape. Okay. Great tip. Good morning, Janie. I love seeing your name pop up. Okay, so the short rows again today, and then I'm going to make a couple of the other fins real quick, and I'm going to try to put together a puppet. Again, I have the cow pieces on my website. We'll probably have the bunny pieces on my website by tonight. And yeah, okay, so the next round of this is going to be a single crochet increase all the way around. Single crochet increase, which is only 2 because there's only 4 stitches. So I'm going to show you that I do an invisible increase, which means to do my increase, I will put, and this is because you're only going to see the front of this. So to do my next stitch, my increase in this stitch, I'm going to work the first stitch in the back loop, the next stitch in the front loop, and that'll be my increase. It'll still be 2 stitches in one stitch, but it's not going to be 2 stitches underneath both of those loops, and you're not going to get the hole from the trying to stuff 2 stitches into one. So that's 3, and I'm missing something here, my bobby pin. I have to keep track, at least while I'm chatting, because oh, thank you so much for the paper crane. If I don't use my I use bobby pins as my stitch markers because I lose them all the time. So you're working in spirals. You're not joining your crochets. So I have to keep track of my first stitch, especially sometimes I don't. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Um, if I don't keep track of them when you're working in spirals, it's so you lose track of where your first stitch was. Um, Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, just like I lose track of my thoughts, I lose track of my stitches. Sometimes, if I'm sitting here and I'm alone and I'm quiet, I can get through a piece just counting my stitches, but typically I always use a stitch marker because I'm getting older. If something distracts me, the dog walks past me, it's gone. If any of you are my age, I'm sure you understand things just go away in your brain sometimes. So the next, I'm working on this stitch here, and an increase in the last stitch, and that gives me 6 stitches, which I don't know if you need to see 6 stitches. It gives me 6 stitches and starts the points of a shark. The next row I'm just going to simply increase to 9 stitches. So I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to single crochet in the next stitch and increase in the next stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Am I off camera? Sorry. 7, 8, 9. So I have my 9 stitches there, and that was round 3. This is what we're making, our shark fin that curves. Round 4 is going to be, round 4 and 5 are going to have the short rows in it because I just want it to curve at the very top. So to do the short rows, and yeah, I am reading my own pattern because I make so much stuff that if I don't write things down, this one I had actually published, but if I don't write things down, this is what they look like, and I tend to forget what I did, and then I pick it up and really don't want to have to. Oh, thank you so much for the roses. Have to count stitches and try to figure everything out. So I have like notebooks like this full, and I do have a couple of patterns because patterns they're a pain in the ass. Like they're a pain in the butt. Like I don't mind putting together the patterns, but it's a pain by the time you do all the typing and you do all the photographs and things like that. So anyway, on to the short row. So I'm going to start my row with my first single crochet. Just drop my bobby pin. It's okay. I have a whole jar of them because I have a whole pile of them down here beside me. I pick them up when I'm out of them. I also found short little bobby pins that work for stitch markers really good too sometimes. Okay, so the first round of the short row, you're not going to chain one when you turn these rows. So the first round I'm going to, it says single crochet in the next 2 stitches and then increase in the next stitch because I still want it to get bigger. So 1, 2, and increase in the next stitch, 3, 4. So I've done 4 stitches on this row. Now to make this part longer, I'm going to turn my work around. I am not going to chain 1, but I'm going to work back along those 4 stitches again. 1, 2, 3, and this was my starting stitch, 4. Okay, and then I'm going to turn my work again. So now I'm working the right side on the right side again. So I'm going to turn my work again. I'm going to go back over those 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see how I've created like a flap. That flap is actually going to get pulled down and incorporated into the round, to give that curved, almost like bubble effect. So the rest of that says, okay, turn 4 single crochet, turn 4 single crochet, and then continuing around the stitch after you've done that, you're going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Now I'm going to tell you, watch so you don't single crochet in the same one that you did your 4th stitch in. You want to make sure you're doing it into the next stitch. And not only do I make sure I do it into the next stitch, but I pick it up like a decrease. I pick up the side of my short row. Any stitch, anywhere on that short row will be fine. I just pick up a stitch on the side of that short row. That one was a little bit tight. And then I go into my stitch on my round and count that as 1. And by doing that, you kind of, it makes it a little bit smoother. I know it's, so I'll do the same thing on the other side, but by doing that, it makes it a little bit smoother. Here, I'll hold it that way. So you can see I have my short rows here. So if I held just the tip of it up here, you can see how this side is getting longer. So if my round is this way, it's actually going to push the tip of it off to the side, and that's what creates that curvature. So 2, and then increase, and 2 more, and increase, I will count and talk to myself while I'm crocheting and doing this, just so you guys realize that I'm paying attention, I'm still here. Now I will show you that the same way you kind of did, I know you're looking at it upside down, but this was my last stitch of my increase on the round. So I'm going to pull that out and show you that instead of just doing that last stitch and then starting my round up here at the beginning of the short row, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up the front loop of my stitch, and I'm going to pick up any loop on the side of my short row. And I'm going to work that together as like a decrease, and that way it pulls the side of the short row and the round, the end of the round together. And now I'm back to where I started my round, and I'm going to go to the next one. And the next round is going to be single crochet 3 and then increase. So I'm going to do 1. This is my second short row. 2, 3, and then I'm going to increase. There's my stitch here. So I did my single crochet 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I did my increase. And now again, I'm going to turn my work, whichever way you're more comfortable with, and I'm going to work back across that 5 stitches without chaining 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm back to the beginning of round, but I'm working from the wrong side. You're looking at the right side. And then to finish the short row round, I'm then going to turn my work again, crochet back across those 5, and you'll see again it creates a flap. I know it seems like an odd way to do a round, but it's what gives it its shape. So the rest of it, now that I've done my short rows, is continuing around with my single crochet 3 and then increase, single crochet 3 and then increase, and I should have 15 stitches total. So let me just make sure I'm on the right page here. And again, I will just pick up a side stitch before I pick up my first stitch. So a side stitch on that flap, and then the next stitch on the round, and I'll count that as my 1, and it kind of draws the flap down towards the round, so there isn't a gap there where you had your flap and then you pulled it down to the round. So that's why I do that. So that's 1, 2, 3, and increase. 1, 2, 3, and increase. And when I do my second stitch for my increase, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up that front loop, and I'm going to pick up any loop on the side of my flap. Not the starting stitch, just any loop on the side of the flap, just to kind of decrease that flap to the round so that it's a little bit more, so that you don't get like a gap there. And then the beginning of my round, I'm going to move my stitch marker. That was the first stitch, so we did 5, 5, and 5. That's where my stitch started, and then the rest of them are going to be just plain rounds. So this round is just not, well, they still increase, but it's just like a regular round. It's not a short row round. So I'm going to do 4, 2, 3, 4, then I'm going to increase 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to increase 1, 2, 3, 4, and increase, and back to my. And if you look, you can see now how that where you added your, and you can kind of manipulate that to pull it, where you added your short rows, it makes it curve so that the point of your spiral is now pointing that way instead of straight up and down. Like if you were to just do like your 6, 9, 12, it would just be a cone. Instead of being a cone, you actually get that curvature in there. So one more row for this one, and I do believe it's 5. 2 more rows, 5, and increase. 4, 5. But that's how you would do your short rows, and that's why it's one of the techniques that you would use for amigurumi that can give it some shaping and make it look like something other than just your standard doll when you're adding your accessory pieces. Increased 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, increase, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm losing track of things here. Let me see. 3, 4, 5, 6. This is what I get for talking too much. Rivet, rivet, rivet. Okay, so is that my 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 16, 15. So that's turning chain was, sorry. I know I'm not the only one that loses my places, especially when I'm chattering away here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 18. Okay. There's my first stitch. Now I'm going to single crochet 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and increase. And I'm just working these regular spirals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and increase. Regular spirals without the short rows, because the only thing I wanted to curve was the very tip of the shark fin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and increase. And then the last row is 6 and increase. Sometimes it's easy when you do an invisible increase, and I'll show you with the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when you do your invisible increase and you work into the back stitch first and then the front stitch second to put 2 stitches in there, I know I've showed you this before, but what I am going to show you this time is sometimes when you do that second stitch, it's easy to lose this. It's easy to lose this stitch beside it. So sometimes you want to kind of like give it a yank over to make sure that you're actually getting into the next stitch and not skipping the next stitch, because sometimes it's easy to skip that stitch, and sometimes that's where your counts get off, and then I would just like get really frustrated with myself. Like I should know better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Down to my last stitch, and increase. And then back to my first stitch, and since it's my first stitch and that's the end of the piece, the pattern for that piece, I'm just going to make a slip stitch, and I'm not even going to chain 2 and knot it because I'm going to use the tail to sew this. So I'm just going to cut a longer tail so that I can sew it, and I am going to cut a longer tail because, and you can kind of see, so like the little witch's hat kind of, how it hooks up. I only have it upside down because it's kind of easier to see the hook upside down. So you can kind of see how adding those extra short rows on the sides there curve your pattern so that your pattern curves. Now if you just did the same number of stitches without increasing on the rest of the stitches, you could make like a long windy snake. That's probably, if you really wanted to practice, that's how I would do it. The other thing with when you're working amigurumi and you're doing spirals like that, tuck my hand in there, your stitches will always shift. So if you look at this stitch here, see if I can do this while I'm watching. So if you look at this stitch here, I know it's a little bit hard to see the V's because there's so many increases. This side might be a little bit better. But so when you're looking at the V's, this V is here, this V is here, this V is here, and you can see that that's a diagonal. So your stitches will shift to the right or to the left if you're, depending on which hand you're working with. So there are sometimes when you're looking at amigurumi patterns, like some of my patterns will say squash the piece to make sure you get to the end. So squash the piece the way it's supposed to be to get to the end. Like with the dolls, I don't do any short rows with the dolls, but because you're working in a spiral, it is still going to always shift. And this doll is worked from the head down through the first foot, then you do the second foot, and then you do the two arms. So you're kind of working the doll like this. So what I recommend is after you've put the eyes on, before you start where the armhole's on, because none of these pieces are sewn on. This whole doll is just one piece. And then you join and crochet the arm, join and crochet the other arm, and join and crochet the other leg. So it's all crocheted. There's no picking up your needle and stitching the pieces. But what I suggest is to make sure you get things that aren't twisted. When you get to a point where you're going to start another portion of it, squash your piece and count from the center your stitches to make sure that you're getting your pieces even. The patterns that I've done, like this one, I've done it, I don't know, I have a whole bucket full of cows and bunnies and these little things. So I've added those extra stitches, excuse me, that's how I know I'm starting to talk too much. So I've added those extra stitches already into the pattern. So at the end of the round, stitch 2 more stitches then. So I've added those stitches to compensate for that. Not every amigurumi pattern or doll pattern or toy pattern is going to have that in it. So just a tip, squash them and look before you start doing pieces just to make sure that they get centered. But my doll pieces, I do compensate for the shift in them. And yeah, it's just one of those things I never did until I started doing this. And I started doing the dolls and the different techniques maybe about 10 or 15 years ago. So it's been, yeah, I was talking to my mother yesterday. I said, I've been doing this for X amount of years. And she says, you've been doing it longer than that. You were probably 4, 5, 6 when you started doing it. And I thought, wow. Growing up, my mother was a seamstress for a dress shop. And my dad painted. He worked for graphics art design. Back then, graphics art wasn't what it was today. Graphics art was you actually had to paint it, make a stencil, and like screen print. So that's what it is. So he did that, and my mother, like I said, was a seamstress for a dress shop. So that's how I learned to sew. All of her sisters crocheted, so that's where I picked up how to crochet, because Sunday nights we'd go to dinner and everybody would sit around, all the women would sit around after everything was cleaned up and crochet. So that's how I learned how to crochet. Thank you very much, Janie. I appreciate it. For the longest time, all I did was like blankets and simple pieces. And then the more the internet came about and the more you saw what other people did, the more I thought, oh, there's like a world of it out there. So the more I started to experiment and do more things with it, and I tend to like to doodle. I tend to like to put my own patterns together because I found sometimes when I buy a pattern, I don't really like the way it's some of the things are put together or some of the techniques are done. So I add techniques that I've learned over the years. And I'm probably not going to finish this puppet because I can tell right now that I'm going to start coughing away here because I'm talking too much. Talked more since I started doing this than I've ever talked. But yeah, that's my puppet. And this would be my fin piece. So when you're putting your pieces on, I recommend that maybe you put your hand in your puppet and then determine where you want to put your pieces, because as you can see, I want that shark piece, that top fin, I want it on the back of my hand. So I would just kind of hold it there and slide my hand out and then pin it. And I will also tell you that I use my bobby pins. Oh, here's a big one. I use my bobby pins to pin my amigurumi because I've already found pins and pieces after I was done. So I just take my bobby pin and slide it through and it holds it there, just like a pin does. This fin portion, I can show you this way. When I stitch this fin portion on, I'm not going to squash it flat because I don't want it to be floppy. I'm actually going to pull it apart just a little bit at the bottom so the top can be squashed flat, but the bottom can be a little bit rounder around it so that it actually looks like a shark's fin coming out. I know it's not quite perfectly. I promise tomorrow I'll have one done so you can see. So I kind of splay that bottom part out when I stitch it on. That's why I left such a long tail, because I'm not just stitching one line down for this particular fin. I'm actually going to stitch all the way around. You can put a little bit of stuffing in there if you want to. You don't have to. It will pretty much stay like that because it's not a very big piece. And then I add my safety eyes, and then I do have two little fins, and the smaller fins are just, I think they're basically just cones. Again, I do have to read my own patterns because I forget from time to time. I have so much stuff that I've made. And yeah, I did that puppet, that one, my name. It is my puppet. I'm still here. I promise. Side fins make two with blue or gray. So this is page 5. There's page 6. There's page 6. Page 6 doesn't show me a picture of the side fin. But if you look at the beginning of it, the picture here, the side fins are just like these teeny tiny little, let's see, I'll just do 2 of them. Or I'll do 1 of them just to show you how the side fins are done. Because it won't take me long. It's only like two or 3 rows here. So to do the side fin for the shark, and again I'll leave my tail just in case that's how I want to sew it. If I don't want to sew it, I can just tuck that in. Side fins make 2. I'm going to chain 4. So this isn't even a spiral, it's just an easy piece. Working it back across the chain, I'm going to single crochet in the second stitch. I'm going to half double crochet in the next stitch. I'm going to single crochet in the top stitch 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and then working back down the other side of the chain. I'm going to skip the top stitch because I made 3 in there already. I'm going to half double crochet, single crochet in the last stitch, and then I'm going to chain 1 and turn. This little side fins are only 2 rows, so I'm going to chain 1 and turn. The bunny ears are the same way they're worked in rows like this. I don't know why I have that big hole there. It'll go away eventually. Okay, so the second one is I'm going to skip the first single crochet and single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Give me 1 second. Ignore. My other phone's ringing in my ear. You have to give me 1 second. Ignore. Okay. My Bluetooth connects to my work phone as well as mine, and I didn't shut it off, so it's ringing in my ear. And when it's ringing in my ear, you can't hear me talk, so I feel really bad. So single crochet in the next 2 stitches, which I did. In this top stitch, I'm going to work a single crochet, and then I'm going to work a chain 1 picot. So instead of chaining 3 and closing your picot the way you did, I'm going to chain 1 and then close my picot, however you want to do it, say it. And then I'm going to single crochet again in that top stitch. And then I'm going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then I'm going to slip stitch in the last stitch and cut my tail and pull through. And that's your little side fin. So it's really only 2 rows. It's only, I don't know, 10 stitches or so. So when you have your shark fin on, when you have your bigger shark fin on, you can take your little fins and position them, weave in at your ends or whatever. And I usually put my little shark fins like right up there. So they're like the little side fins on the sharks. And I try to get my patterns to look as close to realistic as possible. Like I do a lot of looking. Like I'll pull up tons of shark pictures to see like how exactly the sharks look before I try to put my crocheted piece together, because I want it to look like a shark. And the same with some of my other things. So that is the shark. Tomorrow, I promise I will have my pieces sewn on and show you my finished shark. And then I think I might show you how I turn one of my little basic dolls into a giraffe, which would be same basic pattern, only before you would start, you would want to know that you were making a giraffe, because where you have the neck, you would just add more rows, more rounds. So instead of ending the round at, I don't know what round it is, but instead of ending the round at this one, you would then add maybe 5 more rounds to elongate the neck, and then you would just pick up where you left off to do the rest of the body. So yeah, to do a giraffe would be pretty simple, just to do to elongate the neck. So I think that's maybe what I'll do tomorrow. Janie, I don't know if you're still here, or anybody else is still here. I wanted to show you, I finished my bag. I have my little wristlet handle on it. I have my little crossbody strap on it. And I did this last week. I showed you how you can make this piece, embroider the chain across your zipper. When I was doing the shark pieces, and I said when you embroider you get a side piece, the way I did it, well, when you actually truly embroider, you get bottom piece. So this is the top side that I embroidered my zipper, bottom side I embroidered my zipper, and you see the yarn just forms a nice line around that. I don't usually do that, but I saw a couple of people doing that, so I decided I would do a tutorial on it, and it doesn't really matter that it's wavy because it's supposed to be a watermelon slice. And yeah, I do have the straps. I buy inexpensive 3/4 inch cotton twill, and it comes in bags. I actually have one here. It comes in a bag like this with all kinds of different colors in it. And then I bought a couple little bias tape makers, which are really, really neat. They're really cool. They are, I told you, I just have a little corner. This one I haven't opened yet because I haven't needed one this big. But so to make the straps for that, it is this little gadget here, right? And you cut your fabric to the big end, twice as big as it says. So this is 25 millimeters. You would cut it twice that. And then you feed your strip of fabric through here. This pinches it and folds it, so you can start pulling it out, and then you just press it, and as you're pulling it, it folds it, and you just press it. So I can take fabric that matches, or fabric that I want to match, and I fold it into that piece of like bias tape, and then I just top stitch that fabric over top of the cotton twill tape. It makes it a little bit sturdier, and I think it just makes it look nicer than just taking a plain piece of cotton twill tape and using a single color for the strap. And then, of course, I still didn't stitch the very bottom shut, that I've got like little card pockets in there. But yeah, that's how I did that. And the polka dots, yeah, I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, you know what? The black polka dots with the green straps, because I have red polka dots. For those who weren't here, my polka dots on my bags are actually the teeny tiny little safety eyes that I'll never use that come in the multi-packs. So that's what I did there. And I'm just about done before I can't talk anymore. And then tomorrow, yeah, I think maybe we'll start working on, I'll see if I can work on a giraffe and get those pieces. Again, if you go to my website, you can find the basic doll pattern. From the basic doll pattern, so far I have the accessory pieces for the cow. It's a free pattern. My website isn't like a blog site that's blown up with clickbait and advertisement. There's actually none on it. I use it more as a portfolio. You can click on the pattern page, and then so I have the basic doll pattern that's free. I have a link that you can click on that you can go to get the accessory pieces how I made for the cow, which is the ears, the nose, and the horn. And hopefully I have it all typed up, but maybe I'll get some computer time today. I can get the pattern for the ears typed up and on there as well. So if you want to do the bunny, you could do the bunny. And that's kind of my goal, just to help people learn that, like, when you start doing simple things like this, it kind of grows in your brain. It just kind of goes, oh, what if I did this? And that's how it started. Me making blankets when I was less than 10 years old, sitting on the steps with my crazy old aunts, turned into, oh my God, look at the things that I can make now. And I like to talk to other people. I like to show other people how to do it. Even my grandson does it. He called me the other day to tell me all the things that he made, which is great. I loved it. My 3 older boys live in the city. I moved out in the middle of nowhere. So it was kind of nice to hear from them. I'll get to see them for Easter. My parents still live in the city too. A lot of this stuff I do make for craft shows, but I'm not going to bore you with all those details again. maybe I'll go into that again tomorrow because I tend to do it every single time I talk. But, oh, thank you so much, Janie. You can also find me on Instagram. I don't usually post too much on Instagram. I do have a page on Facebook. I don't know if it's Nifty Knots or Stranger Strings or what, but I don't post too much there either. I did, just in case, start uploading my shorts and my smaller videos to YouTube, just in case, it all actually happens. That way I have those videos there, and I think I might actually take the lives that I've been doing and download them and save them and put them under like podcast. I don't know. Would you watch me as a podcast? That's all I do. Sit here and teach and try to show people. For those of you that just joined, I'm just about to get off, but this is my basic pattern for my amigurumi, and from my basic pattern you can pretty much make just about anything you want. It's all the same doll. There's a free pattern on my website. You can go to my link tree and you can find the free patterns on there. I'm working on uploading the accessory pieces because it's all basically the same doll. And yeah, I think I've said switch at any time. Yeah, I think that's what I might do. I might start taking my lives and downloading them so that I have them saved, and then uploading them to the YouTube so they're in like a podcast form, so that if something ever does happen and this is no more, I can just live stream this and save it and do podcasts on YouTube and help. But that's good to hear that people would watch them and listen. So, yeah, tomorrow's a new day. Today's Tuesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. I hope you guys all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for all the gifts. Thank you so much for all the likes. And thank you to everybody who joined me. I really do appreciate it.